Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining. Dennis, all the way from New York. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good evening, Mariah. I hope that you've all had a great day so far. If it's just starting off, I hope that your day is going to be incredible. I thank you for taking the time to join me this evening to chat about two of my favorite East African destinations. And I hope that this talk is inspiring, and I hope you learn something out of it. But yeah, it's going to be eventful. It's going to be fun. I've put some cool things together. And please, Kim, hello. I'm very happy to see that you're stoked for this. I'm also very excited. And I'm glad to see that you love the Amboseli and Lake Nakuru. They are very special destinations. And yeah, very happy to have you on board. And I look forward to seeing your comments and questions potentially throughout the session this evening. But please, yes, yeah, Mariah, I also do hope that April is a go and that we can get out to these two destinations. And seeing that we couldn't go this year, it's going to be such a sweet experience once we get there in April. Really excited, and I'm just, yeah, really excited to get back out on safari with you as well. It's going to be a world of fun, that I can guarantee you. But welcome to everyone who has just joined. Thank you for taking the time this evening. It's good to see so many familiar faces. There's one or two new faces, or names, should I say, that I have not yet seen on any of my webinars. So thank you for joining and welcome. I hope that you're going to enjoy this evening's session as much as I am. Chatting about two destinations that are very dear to me, and two destinations that I thoroughly enjoy. And I hope that throughout this evening's presentation, you will learn a little bit more about these two incredible destinations. But during this evening's webinar, please feel free, if you want to leave me any questions during the presentation, please feel free to leave them in the Q&A tab, because they do seem to get a bit lost in the chat sometimes. So please feel free to leave a question or two in the Q&A tab, and I'll get back to those questions at the end of the presentation. And the only reason for that is because I struggle to access the questions because I cannot see my cursor when I'm busy presenting. So I will get back to your questions at the end of the session. For those of you just joining, thank you so much and welcome. It's great having you on board. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. And I hope that you're going to enjoy the session as much as I am this evening. So the clock has hit 6. Let's give it another minute or so. Not everyone who is registered is here yet, so let's just give it some time. Hello, Jan. So great having you on board. Thank you for joining. I know we were chatting about the Amboseli not too long ago via mail, and I'm pretty sure this is going to answer some questions for you. It's a great destination. Yeah, it's special. So I think, I see there are still a few names ticking in, but I'm going to get the show on the road. And please, as I'd mentioned, please remember, if you want to leave any questions throughout this webinar, please leave them in the Q&A tab, and I will get back to them at the end. Tim, hello, and so glad to see that you're looking forward to this. Thank you for joining. So I'm just going to quickly jump into sharing my screen with all of you so that we can start chatting about these two really cool destinations. So welcome to the Amboseli and Lake Nakuru. So this is going to be obviously a virtual journey throughout these two destinations. And please feel free to ask as many questions as you possibly have. Well, I was not supposed to jump across. There we go. So Amboseli and Lake Nakuru are two of Kenya's, I would say, most popular game reserves. There's a handful of them, And Amboseli and Lake Nakuru really do stand out. And this safari, you can feel free to read through a few of the tour highlights and a short testimonial by Deji. But this safari was put together and molded on the back end of another safari that we host, which is called the Best of Kenya. Now, the Best of Kenya is also an incredible adventure. It's a great safari, the same duration as this particular safari. It's a 9-night safari, so 10 days, but we then visit 4 reserves. Whereas the Amboseli Lake Nakuru, we only visit 2 reserves, and we get to spend a great amount of time in either of them. And this is the exact reason as to why we highlighted the safari and why we had put it together. It's just to hero the Amboseli and Lake Nakuru just a little bit more. Because if you have been to these destinations and have only spent a day or 2 in each, you would have realized that, gee, I could have spent another week in this place, because the opportunities and the areas to see within each reserve are just endless. And this is why we had molded the safari. But there's one slight difference when it comes to the safari as well. And you may be wondering, well, what makes this different to, say, for example, the Best of Kenya? Well, looking at this image, if you look at this tree, this is the exact same tree, the exact same destination, but it's a very different looking scene in each. And the big thing that obviously stands out, bottom right, snow, cold, top left, beautiful sunny day with greenery in the fields in front of the tree. So probably spring going into summer. So obviously season is a big thing. And I'm a firm believer that, that you have not yet traveled a road if you haven't traveled it in both directions. And I'm also kind of leaning towards, you have not yet visited a destination unless you have visited this particular destination in all 4 seasons. And so this is what really makes the Amboseli Lake Nakuru safari very different. It's not only that we get to spend more ample time in these 2 respective reserves, but we get to experience it in a very different kind of season. And when I say this, this is going to explain it a little bit more. So torrential downpour, heavy rains is to be expected on this adventure in April. The reason being is because April is Kenya's long rain periods, and with the rains don't only come dramatic clouds and skies, but it brings in incredible color to the scenes. But you don't have to feel alarmed. You're not going to get soaking wet. You can see one of my guests photographing out of the window of the vehicle over there. Our vehicles in East Africa have a pop-top roof. We can then lift this up when it is not raining, photograph over the top, or use that lower angle and shoot through the windows. But when it does start to rain and pour, we can close this up, close the windows, and we will stay dry inside the vehicle. So this is the main difference. And again, another factor that led us to creating this particular safari is because we wanted to provide an opportunity to guests who have already joined us on the Best of Kenya or weeks in the Mara during the Great Migration, on the off-peak weeks, to experience Kenya in a very different way. And obviously sending people into Kenya in the low season, when it is raining, when traversing is a little bit tough, and when conditions aren't perfect, we saw this as an opportunity to provide guests who have already been to Amboseli, who've already been to Lake Nakuru, to come back and experience it. Because trust me, I was blown away the first time I went into Amboseli and Lake Nakuru in the long rains. It's like it's a totally different reserve, and because of the colors, because of the water. But you'll see a few examples as we move forward throughout this presentations as to what I actually mean. So your journey, if you decide to join us, and I know Mariah, you on board, so you must be very excited. She's going to be joining me. She was supposed to join me this year, but thanks to COVID, that's been pushed into next year, April. But the journey, once you arrive in Kenya, starts at JKIA, so Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. This is in Nairobi. And on your arrival, you will be met by a Wildeye representative, either Billy or Mary. They will meet you right outside the doors. They'll have a nice big Wildeye sign with your name on it, and they will then escort you through to your transfer vehicle, which will then take you from the airport building. And we usually recommend guests come in a day early and spend the night here at Crown Plaza. So from JKIA to Crown Plaza, it's less than a 5-minute drive. You can then go and unload, have a shower, get the aircraft mess off you, and enjoy a nice dinner, enjoy a spa treatment if that's what you're into. And the reason why we say spend a night before your safari here at Crown Plaza is because the very next morning, we then depart by road from JKIA at about 7:30 in the morning. We depart by road in our safari vehicle all the way to Amboseli Serena Lodge, which is about a 4.5 hour drive, depending on the traffic you find along the way. But it's usually quite a quick and easy drive through, 1 or 2 stops along route. And yes, once we get to the gates, safari starts immediately. So from Nairobi to the Kimana gate that we arrive at is about 4.5 hours. And as I mentioned, as we get to the gate, the safari starts. So I remember this was one of my first days as we entered into the park approaching Serena Lodge. This is what we got blessed with. So scenes like this are quite common even on day of arrival. Within the first 20-30 minutes of being in the Amboseli, things like this are very possible and quite likely and highly, or the chances are high of seeing this. But slowly bumble to the lodge, we then check in, see our rooms, and there will be ample time for a good lunch on arrival. So that trip in from the gate to the lodge is not just going to be a race to get to the lodge. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to spend time with herds of elephants, with lion, whatever we see en route, some special birds. And because Amboseli is a phenomenal birding destination, if you're a bird lover, you will be in heaven if you decide to visit the Amboseli. There are hundreds of bird species that you can spend time with, and they are forever active in the marshes, and opportunities are endless in this reserve. Animals never stop moving in the Amboseli. They always moving. And now after a lunch, safari starts, and we make our way out into the field. Now scenes like this early morning, late afternoon are common regardless as to what time of year you visit the Amboseli. So golden dusty scenes like this are usually more common in the drier periods, so outside of April, but massive herds of elephant, what the Amboseli is best known for, is a given every single day. That I can assure you. You will see loads of elephant every day. Lion, great opportunity to spend time with lion in the Amboseli. If you look at that tree line behind the wildebeest, that is where Serena Lodge is. So that lion pride live right outside Serena Lodge, and they're always there, which is great. But we're obviously going to be heroing the wet season, and the marshes where these elephants are walking now always have water, so it's always green there year round. But areas like this, for example, where there's new life walking, look at that cute little baby, it's not always green. So with the rains come not only, as I mentioned, those dramatic, beautiful skies, potentially rainbows, but you have beautiful green scenery everywhere around you, which is really stunning. And of late, the cool thing is with Amboseli is the first couple of times I'd visited, I'd never seen a flamingo there. We had to spend time at Lake Nakuru to see a flamingo, but we were very lucky that with the massive rains that fell in about 2-3 years ago, the water levels were at that perfect height where that algae that these flamingo feed on kind of attracted them, and they swarmed in numbers. There are now thousands of flamingo all over the Amboseli, and it's probably one of the better places to spend time with them, believe it or not. And that's just thanks to quite a massive downpour about 2.5 years ago. But now looking at the shot and speaking of the Amboseli photographically, it is a phenomenal reserve to go and photograph in. So this particular image with a nice large male elephant standing in front of an ice-capped Kilimanjaro is the iconic to me, the iconic African elephant shot. You have an elephant, you have Kilimanjaro and plains all around him. It's really stunning and quite an iconic scene. But one thing that you will notice is that the vegetation this guy's standing in is dull, it's gray. The backdrop's beautiful with that mountain any time of year you visit. But in saying this, the dull, dead vegetation around him does not destroy this image. But if you take a look at this next shot, just with a bit of rain and now a lift in color, that contrast and that pop that happens is quite tremendous. It really makes a massive difference to your photographs the more complementary colors you can add into the scene. So you obviously don't want to go overboard, but without rain, without green vegetation, I see someone's question that popped in, and I'll get back to that at the end of this. But yeah, so the more of this vegetation or less vegetation you can add in, the more value it will add to your scene as well. And one thing you would also notice is if you look at the top of Kilimanjaro there's a lot more snow on that, on the top of that mountain than there was in the previous scene. And the reason for this is just because of the time of year. There's a lot of rainfall during the month of April. So obviously a lot of rain falling on that mountain will obviously turn either to ice, or it will just snow a lot more up on that mountain due to heavier cloud formations in the area during that time of the year. Now this is that same lion that was walking past that tree line right outside Serena, the lodge we stay at, Serena Safari Lodge. And again, a great image, a cool shot here with the lion and its potential victim standing right behind it, the wildebeest. And it doesn't make for a bad shot, but looking at the color of the lion and the color of that grass, there is a bit of a contrast issue in a sense where the lion is kind of blending into its environment, which is not a bad thing. But now the difference you will see in the wet season is that now you'll photograph, this is a member from that same pride and two cubs, the same animal, the same species, the lion, but in a greener environment really makes for a nice visual mass lion popping out of the scene kind of photograph. And it's just thanks to the color of the vegetation that's growing around these cats. Another thing that I love about Amboseli is that you can really see these mammoth-like elephants. So this particular elephant is who they refer to as Tim the Tusker. So he was a monster elephant. He was really large, and sadly he had passed away in February, and this was due to old age. He was about 50 years old. And but in saying this, a lot of people were very saddened by this because they still wanted to see him. His genes are still in the Amboseli. There are still other big elephants like him in the Amboseli, and they are forever moving. So bull elephants obviously spend most of their adult life alone. So that's why we see him walking across this beautiful open grassland in the Amboseli. And this is one thing I love about the Amboseli, is that it's so diverse. It's not diverse only in terms of its wildlife, but it's so diverse when it comes to the vegetation as well. So there's 4 or 5, I think there's 4, if I remember correctly, varied ecosystems within this one reserve. It's absolutely phenomenal. So you drive a couple of Ks and you're in a totally new environment. Drive a couple of Ks further and you're again in a totally different environment. So this is an area not too far from the marsh, this beautiful flat open plain grassland, and seeing any animal walk across there is really beautiful. And photographically speaking, it's easy shooting because there's no obstructions, there's no branches or trees or anything like that. It's just open for miles and miles and miles and miles. Now imagine an elephant walking across a green plain with a beautiful rainbow behind it. So they say there's a pot of gold at the bottom of every rainbow. In the Amboseli, there is either an elephant or a herd of elephants at the end of every rainbow. And this to me was one of my top 3 highlight moments on safari ever. And so here I singled out one male elephant at the bottom of this rainbow. But on this day we had over 300. And I kid you not, I tried to count them. roughly counted about between 250 and 300, but there were so many elephant. It was just, you could barely see grass in one area. It was just elephant and two rainbow kind of projecting in the sky above them. It was a spectacular moment. And as mentioned, one of my top 3 moments out on safari to date. And again, this is just thanks to us risking it, if I may, in the wet season, in the long rains, to go and experience this area in a totally different and unfamiliar season. And it definitely did pay off looking at the scene. And another thing with photographing in the rain is you can just get different images. A lot of the time in Southern Africa, where you're in vehicles that aren't closed up and you can't sit inside and stay dry, in order to get images like this with raindrops falling around these animals, you get absolutely drenched in South Africa or Southern Africa if you want to get this right, because you have to sit in that pouring rain. And ponchos help for maybe the first 30 seconds, and then you're going to be soaking wet. Whereas in East Africa, we close that vehicle up, photograph through a gap in the window, stay dry, and still manage to photograph, which is really, really cool. Now, one thing about spending a lot of time in a reserve, and a lot of the time people want to spend like 2 nights here, 2 nights here, 2 nights here, and jump around and keep moving. But the dangerous thing in doing that is that the whole safari in general is going to feel rushed. And as I mentioned, there's 4 ecosystems in the Amboseli. You want to spend time in certain areas and really just make the most of it. So where I filmed this is an area called Observation Hill, and you see over the whole of the Amboseli. It really is stunning. And here you can see Jen sitting down, here Jane sitting down, some elephant down at the bottom, and really just taking their time and enjoying where they are, enjoying the tranquility. I'm just going to quickly stop it here. Enjoying the tranquility and taking in the beauty of what the Amboseli really is. Because if you go up there, spend 2 minutes, 3 minutes, take a shot or two, run back down to go see some more elephants before you have to leave tomorrow, you're going to kind of lose out on that experience. And this is one of the reasons why we've heroed 5 nights at Amboseli, is so that we can spend more time up on areas like Observation Hill or on the edge of Lake Amboseli, which is far to the west, so that we can potentially see and experience the Amboseli in a different way. So looking at this image, we sat for quite a while. We saw this herd of elephant coming in from the distance, and we had said, yes, it'll be so cool if these guys walk along the edge of the swamp at the bottom of Observation Hill and feed along it and drink along the edge of the swamp. And we were just very fortunate that they actually did what we had wished and hoped for them to do. And it just gives you a totally different perspective of what the Amboseli is and what it looks like, and just how absolutely breathtaking this area is. And that's one of the reasons why we've heroed more time in a destination, is so that things like this can be enjoyed more. There's greater opportunity to witness things like this and spend time in areas like this. It's very, very important. That rush mentality is not a good thing. I've experienced it way too often. And unfortunately, yeah, there's a bit of a downer to the whole experience in general. Now, one thing in the Amboseli, this was recorded on the very first trip, there were massive rains, huge flooding. So there is a potential chance of you struggling to logistically to get around the reserve. A lot of the time in the month of April, in the long rains, they close off a lot of roads because you cannot drive them. And even if you do attempt to, that's probably washed away. So you'll drive for a couple of 100 meters and then fall into a massive hole. So they close off quite a few roads. So accessibility can be a bit of a tricky thing. But fortunately, with the vehicles we're in, our lifted Land Cruisers, it's not really a big problem for us. We can kind of get to and from areas that we need to get to. And game viewing, I mean, water doesn't stop the animals. They're forever moving. And in all honesty, coming to think of it, I've been hosting the Best of Kenya this would have been my 4th year, if I recall correctly. And I've hosted 2 Amboseli Lake Nakuru safaris, and I think I've seen better game viewing in the Amboseli in times like this, when it's flooded, when it's wet. than I have in the drier months. In saying that, I've seen incredible stuff in the drier months on Best of Kenya, but I think it's just the whole color contrast that really gets to me, and it's just so pretty after the long rains. But now, after you've fought those roads in the Amboseli, remember we drove in from Nairobi to Amboseli. We then fly out of, that was not supposed to happen. Let me just exit chance, start that again. There we go. Okay. So now once we have fought these treacherous roads, nice, bumpy and wet, at least there's no dust. That's the great thing. Your camera gear doesn't get too dusty. But then we obviously jump in a caravan aircraft, and we make our way out of the Amboseli by aircraft. And yes, in all honesty, seeing this place from the sky, particularly after big rains like this, is also just mind-blowing. If you're lucky enough to get a clear, open view of Kilimanjaro while you're in the sky, it's just so spectacular. It's absolutely breathtaking. So as mentioned, it's about a 45-minute flight from the Amboseli all the way to Nairobi's Wilson Airport. So we will then land at Wilson Airport about 45 minutes later. And the way the safari is structured, it's more of an exclusive experience. So what I mean by this is that you'll have one wild eye guide, being myself, and then 3 other guests that will accompany this adventure with us. So it'll be 4 in the vehicle in total, well 5, including our drivers, Jimmy and Sammy. But in the back of the vehicle, we're all, if I may say, the magic happens, all the photography happens. There'll be 4 of us based in the back of the vehicle. There are only 4 seats in the vehicle. We've taken out the middle rows in our safari vehicle, so there's ample space for camera gear, a lot of space to stand up, to move around, so you don't feel crammed, and you have a lot of space, which is really cool. But now, seeing that the Amboseli is about a 4.5 hour drive from Nairobi, Jimmy, one of our East African staff members, he will drive us in the Amboseli, show us around there for the 6 days, 5 nights. Once we fly out of the Amboseli to Wilson, we will then meet our second partner in crime, which will be Sammy. He's one of our other East African staff members, one of our other drivers, and he will then collect us at Wilson Airport. He will ensure that all of our luggage gets packed in, and he will ensure that we make our way from Wilson to Lake Nakuru, Sarova, Lion Hill in one piece. And this is a really cool experience of the safari, is because the trip from Nairobi to the Amboseli, you don't spend too much time driving through local villages and local towns. And there are a few places here and there where you see some local people along the side of the roads, but there's not a lot of it happening. It's big, open, arid Maasai farmlands, basically, that we're going through en route to Amboseli in the vehicle. Whereas from Wilson to Nairobi to Lake Nakuru, this is what we get to experience. I just love it. I think it's a controlled chaos. The roads there, you never want to drive there yourself, that I can assure you. It's absolutely crazy. But that experience of driving through the local towns and local villages, interacting with the locals at the side of the road, they're such happy and friendly and loving people. You'll pull up on the side of the road, you're at a stop street or whatever it may be, and the kids will come running and screaming and waving at you and just sharing their love, and just embracing the fact that you are tourists visiting their country. It's really incredible. And it's just so cool getting to learn more about different cultures and seeing more of the countryside, rather than flying from one place to another the whole time, because you miss so much of what's actually happening on the ground. And now, en route to Lake Nakuru, this is one of the stops that we will stop by at. And before I hit play here, I mean, just look how vast this landscape is. So I'm sure if you've done a bit of reading about Kenya and what Kenya is, I'm sure somewhere along the line you would have read about the Great Rift Valley. And this is a stop on one of the routes en route to Lake Nakuru, that you can look over the entire Rift Valley from this lookout point. It is absolutely incredible, so beautiful, and really a highlight of that road trip to Lake Nakuru. And here you can see a local man chatting to Jen, and just behind her, Sue chatting to another local, and they're just explaining the Rift Valley to them. There's a lot of arts and craft in this area that they've made themselves on sandstone, and they've engraved details about the Rift Valley. It's really, really cool. And yeah, if you want to buy a piece of jewelry or a coffee table stone to remember the experience, this will be the place to do so. It really is cool. But then we'll arrive at Lake Nakuru. Sarova Lion Hill is the lodge's name. And I must say, I think this lodge has the most beautiful garden in the entire Kenya or Kenyan tourism industry. It's phenomenal. You're up on this hill called Lion Hill, and it is just smothered with fever trees. It's forever green. There's so much bird life in it, and you look over the beautiful Lake Nakuru from the top of where your rooms are now situated. It is really stunning. So we'll check in, we'll enjoy a lunch, and then we'll make our way out on safari. Now this, I put this in here because this was the first ever tree climbing lion I got to see. And it was on the very first Amboseli Nakuru safari back in 2018. And it was, we just got to camp, we checked in, we had something to eat, got back in the vehicle and made our way out on safari. And this is literally, as you leave the lodge, you turn left on the main Lion Hill Road on your way to the lake. And yes, it was probably 5 minutes down that road. It's literally just down the road. We found this lioness sitting up in the tree. And from that moment onwards, I told myself, I never want to come to this place if it has not yet rained, because it is just absolutely spectacular. But we'll speak a bit more about lion behavior and why they climb trees there in just a little bit. Now looking at this, I don't know if the video is lagging on your side. I'll just start it over. But rhino, probably one of the best places to view rhino in Kenya is in Lake Nakuru. There's also great lion populations. But now look at this scene, the previous two images. I'm just going to go back there. As you can see, yes, it's beautiful fever trees. But again, everything's dull, everything's dead. Doesn't make for a non-appealing looking image. But as soon as it rains in that long rain period and you get blessed with moments like this, you can just already see in this video clip how incredible it is having a wild creature walking through a lush, green, dense, vegetated area that provides this contrast to really make your photographic subject, in this case a lion, really stand out and hero that frame. If you can plan properly and position your vehicle strategically in Lake Nakuru, there's obviously mountains and cliffs on either side of the reserve. So the lake's in the middle, and there's two big mountains on either side. And then surrounding that lake is this fever tree forest, which is just so spectacular. It's like this mystical world. It's really cool. But if you can position strategically in this place, you can take photographs in a scene like this where people would never ever guess that this was photographed in Lake Nakuru with these beautiful dark blue backdrops. And obviously the colors enhanced thanks to the rains that had fallen in that area in this time of the year that I filmed this. So in general, a perfect Big Five experience would be the Amboseli Lake Nakuru. Another very endangered species is the reticulated giraffe, the Rothschild giraffe that you will find in the Amboseli, or in Lake Nakuru. In the Mara and most of the other reserves throughout Kenya, you'll only find the Maasai giraffe. So here we find the endangered Rothschild giraffe, which is really special. And again, that fever trees forest is forever green. They always got this beautiful yellow shine coming off the bark, the green leaves. But now after the rains, not only the trees are green, everything else. And I mean, this place gets super green. Sometimes I actually say it's a bit too green, particularly when you're in the middle of the forest. That vegetation that grows on the forest floors, it's so vibrant that you really have to be sure of how you can control these colors coming through in your images. But not only that, those moody, beautiful skies and clouds rolling over that hillside is just really, really pretty. Now looking at this is very close. I see someone else's question that popped through, and I'll answer that in a little bit. We're not too far from the end now. But now looking at this, rhino, buffalo, I mean, getting big five. I've had leopard and rhino in the same scene here at Lake Nakuru. I've had lion and rhino. I've had multiple big five family members in the same shot here at Lake Nakuru. It offers such great opportunity for wildlife photography, because the animals come out of the forests to come drink at the water's edge and make their way back into the forest. And there's forever youngsters, young baby rhino around. The reason why Lake Nakuru was created and kind of proclaimed a national park is to protect the rhino in Kenya. So if you really want to see white rhino and you don't want to kind of risk it, I may or may not see it. If you've got one destination to travel to and you need to and have to and must see rhino, Lake Nakuru is the place you want to go to, because I think my record on a day was about 28 individual rhino on a single morning and then afternoon safari. There are so many rhino in this place. And obviously with the rains coming in and the altitude of Lake Nakuru, that misty scene making again for the scary kind of environment and photographic moment is always special there. It's opportunities are forever changing, and you can never, you should always expect the unexpected in this reserve, because things are forever changing. It really is cool. And I mean, just look at that now with not only the green trees and green and yellow trees, but you have this green foreground as well with a nice rich blue stormy sky. I mean, what's not to love about this place in the wet season? It really is pretty. Now, the great thing about Lake Nakuru as well is it's not only home to many white rhino, it's home to many black rhino as well. So if you're willing to spend time in the forest searching for these elusive black rhino, the chances are pretty good that you're going to see one. And it's always exciting seeing any animal in and amongst this mystical fever tree forest. It really is special. Now, lion in Lake Nakuru, as I've mentioned, common sight as well. And for the most part, most of my time spent in Lake Nakuru have been in the drier periods. And obviously the greenery is one thing that really makes these cats stand out, because they're this tan color. Photographing them in a green scene really makes them stand out, which is really special. So this was obviously photographed in, it was either February or July, so in a drier month. But now, if you want to see tree climbing lions of Lake Nakuru, April will probably be your best bet to hopefully achieve this. And the reason being is because cats in general just don't enjoy water very much. And because Lake Nakuru is kind of like a catchment area, there's hills on either side, so water just flows into the middle where the cats live, and they want to escape and get rid of, or get away from the swampy marshland, which is now at ground level in Lake Nakuru. So they often retreat to trees, not only to scan out and to look for a potential victim, but it's also drier up there, so they don't have to lie down and kind of mingle around in the marsh and the mud all day, every day. And then this was, I think, also one of my top 3 moments on safari ever. This was in July, believe it or not. But it just comes to prove that that forest can be very misleading. There's a bit of magic involved with this place, is that even though July is a drier month, photographing deep within the fever tree forest, if you get very lucky and you get a leopard up in one of the trees, it's really a moment that I will definitely remember forever. But as I mentioned, the forest is very misleading because there's always greenery. The trees always have this yellow bark, green leaves, and there's always this blue haze that falls in behind the row of trees. And it really does come across as if this was photographed in a totally different season. But obviously the chances of you seeing leopard up in a tree is also a lot greater in the month of April, because they want to get rid of that marshy, wet environment all around them. And then another standout highlight from Lake Nakuru is that you can get out on foot at the water's edge. You can get right up close to a lot of these birds and photograph them, either photograph them, sit and watch them and enjoy them. And obviously, if you've done a bit of research, flamingo being a big highlight, as well as pelican at Lake Nakuru. So there are hundreds of birds that call Nakuru shore home. So if you're a bird lover, the safari is definitely going to be one that's going to put a smile on your face every single day. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of birds on this lake every day, and forever active, morning, evening. It really is a moving and a very special destination. And then after our 4 nights there and 5 days, we will then make our way back from Lake Nakuru by road again, about a 3-hour drive back to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, where you would either get dropped off at a hotel if you're going to be spending a night in Nairobi before your international flight back home, or you will be dropped off at the terminal building to make your way to check in and make your way back home. So now, camera gear recommended for the safari. I would, for any Kenyan destination, I would recommend lenses, multiple lenses if possible. If not, and you can only go with one lens, I would say 100 to 400 or 80 to 400 if you're a Nikon shooter. And the reason why I say this is because the Amboseli, you often need quite a lot of reach to get nice and close to your subject. So you want at least 400 millimeters or more. But then also in the Amboseli, if you want to shoot wider and get elephants in front of Kilimanjaro, or you want to shoot wider in Lake Nakuru to get a subject and that beautiful fever tree forest behind them, you want to shoot a little bit wider, so maybe a 24-70, but 100-400 would obviously work for that as well, but 24-70 would be prime. And then 70 to 200, sorry, 70 to 200. But then also, just in case you get animals nice and close and you want to go ultra wide, then I would say pack in your 24-70 or 16-35, something like that would work well. And then on the safari, a tripod will not be needed. The reason for it is, firstly, there's no space in the vehicle for your tripod because you're going to have 3 other people also trying to move around in the vehicle and photograph. We do provide you with bean bags that you can either put over the window or on the roof, and you can rest your camera on that. And 2 bodies, camera bodies if possible, because even though it rains, if the sun is out for a couple of hours in the afternoon, the dust can pick up. So the less you have to change lenses and camera bodies, the better. But now that is it for the presentation. I see there are quite a few questions that have come through. So let me jump into the Q&A tab and have a quick look here. Both are same. Pooja asked, both are same. I'm not too sure what you mean. Maybe just retype that question, please, Pooja. Both are same. I'm not too sure what you are referring to. And then Elaine, how do you how would the destination be just after the rains in May? Would the area still be so green? Yeah, I would see. So April and May are the 2 long rain, or the 2 months of the long rain period, Elaine. But April being like the massive downpour. If you look back historically, April being the most amount of rain. But yes, definitely there's still going to be rainfall in May, and it will still definitely be green if they've received good rains on that bit, or in that particular year. Definitely it would be. Okay. And then Serena, apologies for leaving, work has gotten away. I'll catch the rest of the presentation online. One question. Not sure if you have discussed this, but what are your thoughts or recommendations on aerial flights for photography, i.e. helicopter over Lake Bogoria for flamingos? Are there areas near Amboseli which this is adventurous, or is the cost to value ratio not really worth it? So this is a great question, and I will always say, if you can afford doing a helicopter flip, or if you can afford heading out in a balloon safari, whatever it may be, and the destination you are visiting is offering this, I would say go for it, 100% go for it. Because that perspective you get, may it not even be photographically if you don't see animals from up there, just being up there and seeing the landscape from that perspective is so worth it. But I don't know of, like, the helicopter flips or flights over Lake Bogoria is definitely a go-to. We can definitely help you arrange that. But I don't think there are any flights over the Amboseli. Because it's a national park, that airspace is protected and they will not allow helicopters to fly paying guests, if I may, over the Amboseli to photograph it. But definitely, if you are in an area, it's worth every penny, because it's really special seeing the destination you're so used to seeing from ground perspective, now from the bird's eye view. It really is cool. Thanks for that question, really good one. And then Patrick, what kind of vegetation could I expect when traveling to Kenya in December? So in December, so Kenya have long and short rain periods. Their short rain periods fall between June and, I would say, August, October, or from June to October, is their short rain periods, and pushing into November. So the chances of you seeing a bit of greenery during your stay in December is good, but it also depends on where you are going in Kenya. Because if you stay further south, like in the Masai Mara region, and now you compare that to Samburu, which is way up north, the vegetation is going to be extremely different, because Samburu is very arid, very dry, desert-like. But there is this is a period just after the short rain periods, but there might still be a bit of greenery around, but it's going to be kind of on that fine line between a bit of lush green vegetation and areas where it is already bone dry. Because from January, February, things are already quite dry and the seasons have turned dramatically. But good question there. Thank you, Patrick. Elaine, do either of these reserves have problems with tsetsis or just flies? No tsetse flies in either of the reserves, which is a great thing. There are just a lot of flies and midgets and things flying around, but nothing that really hurts you. So you don't have to worry about that. Great question, Elaine. And James, thanks for the presentation. You're most welcome. Thank you for joining. I really do appreciate it. Okay, and then Jan, sorry, I put my question in the wrong place. No problem whatsoever. What is it like on this trip in November, weather-wise, plus green vegetation? So in November, it will be slightly different, because this is coming to the end of their short rain period. So experiencing some rain, there is still an opportunity to get some photographs of species and animals in the rain. But there's going to be a lot or less rain in November than there would have been in April. So our November departure to Lake Nakuru and Amboseli is just to hero more time, or molded around more time in each reserve, and not necessarily the rain factor, but seeing that it is at the end of the short rain periods, rain is still a possibility, and green vegetation also very much a good possibility. Good question, Jan. Thank you so much. Okay, and it looks like that is it for the questions that have come through. Tim, your kind words are very, very, very much appreciated in the chat. I really do appreciate it. And I thank you once again. Woodland kingfisher in April, Mariah. I've never seen a woodland kingfisher in that area, to be honest with you. So if we see one, we're super, super, super lucky. So let's hold times for April. But thanks again for everybody's time. It was such a pleasure chatting to you all about these two phenomenal destinations. I really do love these two parks in Kenya. And if you ever get the opportunity, or if you ever want to chat about these destinations, please feel free. You can email me, you can find me on Instagram, and I will happily answer any questions about either of these reserves, or any reserve within Kenya or Southern Africa. But Kenya in particular, I really do love. I have a passion for it. But thank you so much for everybody's ears and for the questions. I do appreciate it. And yeah, my next webinar is coming up on the 23rd of September, which is a premium webinar. So it's going to cost $20, but it is going to be super informative, where I speak about understanding light. I've been working on the presentation this week and I just cannot wait to present. It's going to be in-depth, understanding light a lot better, the characters of light and what you need to know about it, basically. But yeah, thank you all again for, I see there's 2 more questions that popped in. Jenny, thank you so much. Excellent presentation. Like, you have grown so much over the years and increasing confidence. Jenny, that is so sweet of you. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Great webinar from Josh, and I think that's how you pronounce it. Thank you so much for the kind words. I do appreciate it, and I hope that you have an incredible day further if the day has only started. If your day is coming to an end, I do hope that you've had a blessed day. And yeah, I'll chat to you all in future webinars. Have a good one, and bye-bye for now.